Here are the Godzilla vs. Kong Easter eggs you might have missed. The fight of the century is almost here, and no, I'm not talking about the one between me and my neighbor's parakeet that just sits in their garage screaming 8 hours a day. Rather, I'm talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, the latest entry in Warner Bros. And Legendary's Monsterverse, which, as the title suggests, features two colossal kaiju laying the smackdown on each other, and a movie that takes us all around the world and even deep inside of it. Now, as with any monster movie worth its weight in skullcrawler meat, Godzilla vs. Kong is jam-packed to the gills with all sorts of epic Easter eggs, subtle homages, and deep-cut references to Toho monster movies of yesteryear, iconic anime moments, and so much more. And now that the movie is in theaters and on HBO Max, we're going to break down some of the coolest Easter eggs we spotted that you might have missed in Godzilla vs. Kong. However, in order to do so, we do need to talk about this movie in detail and spoil some of the bigger moments in the film. So, if you've been living inside the Hollow Earth and you haven't seen it yet for some reason, or you're just worried about that kind of thing, take a page out of Kong's book and hitch a ride on out of here. Alright, let's get into it, shall we? The first Easter egg comes fairly early on in the movie when we see Kong going through his morning routine on what we think is Skull Island, and then he throws a spear towards the sky that reveals he's actually trapped inside of a Monarch containment outpost. As we see on Monarch's screens, the roof breach occurs in Sector 7G, which is where Homer Simpson works at Springfield's nuclear power plant on The Simpsons. Yet another place that is perpetually in crisis and on red alert, usually because of something that Homer Simpson did, or rather did not do.
Huh? Noise! Bad noise!
Next up, when we first meet Alexander Skarsgård's harried Hollow Earth expert Nathan Lind, it happens at the fictional Denham University of Theoretical Science in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The name Denham refers to the character of Carl Denham, a film director in the original King Kong from 1933 and the 2005 remake that brings our heroes to Skull Island under the auspices of filming a movie. And obviously what follows is some serious monkey business. I said. Moving on, we come to one of the single coolest moments in this entire movie, the first battle between Kong and Godzilla that happens while Monarch is transporting Kong to the Hollow Earth via aircraft carrier. Now, this is actually an elaborate reference to Neon Genesis Evangelion, where Unit 02 battles the Leviathan-esque angel Gagiel at sea, and this leads to an epic battle both above and below the waves, kind of like what we see here in GVK as well. And speaking of Neon Genesis Evangelion, another reference happens much later in the movie when Damien Bashir's Walter Simmons tells Ren Serizawa to get in the goddamn chair and pilot Mechagodzilla. Now, this is perhaps the most hilarious reference to one of anime's most enduring memes, namely Gendo Ikari telling his hapless son Shinji to get in the robot. And while Gendo Ikari is a far cry from Father of the Year, over time the catchphrase has grown more aggressive and explicit among fans, evolving into get in the f***ing robot, Shinji, and now, thanks to GVK,
get in the goddamn chair.
Going back just a little bit, when we see Kong being airlifted to the Hollow Earth entrance in Antarctica, this is actually a reference and an homage to how King Kong gets airlifted into battle against Godzilla in 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla by a fleet of air balloons. And that's something which director Adam Wingard has confirmed in interviews. With that said, this also seems to reference a sequence from 1967's King Kong Escapes where the nefarious Doctor Who, and no, not that one, abducts Kong and brings him to the North Pole via multiple aircrafts, which, you know what, it's about timey-wimey, we paid homage to that as well. And speaking of movie monster history, conspiracy theory podcaster Bernie reveals that he had a flask of Katsunari single malt whiskey in his pocket. And while not exactly a one-to-one, this could be a subtle reference to original Mechagodzilla actor Kazunari Mori, who portrays the mechanical monster in both 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and 1975's Terror of Mechagodzilla as well. Moving on, let's talk about the Heave, or the Hollow Earth aerial vehicle, if you nasty. Now, this high-tech Apex aircraft allows our heroes to plumb the depths of the Hollow Earth, and it's seemingly modeled on yet another piece of Godzilla history, the Super X that first appeared in 1984's The Return of Godzilla. Armed with all manner of advanced weaponry, it was intended to be mankind's best defense against nuclear weapons, but in truth it wound up being used against Godzilla when he attacked Tokyo in that movie. Much like the Super X, the Heave is armed with plenty of weapons of its own, but the way in which it unleashes a barrage of missiles on the Warbat, that giant pterodactyl-esque critter inside the Hollow Earth, is an Easter egg in and of itself. This is an iconic anime trope known as the Itano Circus, a term referencing the signature style and move of animator Ichiro Itano and made famous by anime like Macross. The end result is something that's been repeated countless times across different shows and series and movies, now including Godzilla vs. Kong. And for more on this particular Easter egg, I highly recommend reading Toussaint Egon's deep dive over on Polygon. And speaking of anime, the neon-soaked Hong Kong fight scene between Godzilla and Kong is a direct homage to Neo Tokyo's appearance in Katsuhiro Otomo's landmark 1988 anime, Akira. But there are even more Easter eggs that are taking place during the middle of that fight. For example, when Kong shoves his axe down Godzilla's throat to prevent that monster's breath attack, that is actually an homage to the iconic moment from 1962's King Kong vs. Godzilla, where Kong jams a giant tree into Godzilla's gaping maw. And long story short, if you're Godzilla, maybe keep your distance the next time you open your big scaly mouth, otherwise, surprise, it's snack time. Later on in the fight, we see Kong popping his dislocated shoulder back into place by slamming it into a nearby building, and this painful procedure is actually straight out of Lethal Weapon 2, where Mel Gibson's Riggs pops his shoulder back into place after dislocating it so he can escape a straitjacket. And last but not least, the way that Godzilla ultimately defeats Mechagodzilla by ripping off its shiny metal head is actually a tried and true method for sending that mechanical menace back to robot hell. It's exactly how Godzilla settles the score in 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. And fun fact, when Godzilla tries the same move in Terror of Mechagodzilla, this time Mechagodzilla has a smaller laser-shooting head inside of its neck like this murdery Matryoshka doll. Anyway, in GVK it makes total sense and feels fitting because Mechagodzilla is powered by King Ghidorah's decapitated head, which Godzilla ripped off during Godzilla King of the Monsters, which, you know what? Dude just loves decapitating people, I guess. Honestly, I'm happy for him. I'm glad he has a hobby. Anyway, those are some of the coolest Easter eggs and deep cut references from Godzilla vs. Kong that you might have missed. And for even more deep dives into the MonsterVerse and Toho history, we've got you covered over on Nerdist.com. But first, folks, tell us which of these Easter eggs is your favorite? What other Easter eggs did you spot that we did not include here? And what do you want to see from the future of the MonsterVerse? Let us know in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, stay tuned to Nerdist.com.